right, y'all. AM/FM, Radio Free Go-Go.
Good morning, DC. It's Wednesday, and you know what that means. It's time for another midweek check-in from the Capitol Hoop Caucus. I'm Wardell, McCabe, and I'm joined, as always, by my two co-hosts, Isaac Jamir and Troy Halliburton, and we are actually joined by a very special guest, a repeat guest on the show, the one, the only, Domo. Domo, thank you so much for joining us on this midweek show.
Yeah, man. As always, man. Thank you for having me. Love being on y'all show, man. Chopping it up with y'all and just talking basketball, man.
Domo, man, look, you already know when we checking in with the Wizards, we gotta go with the premier Wizards tweeter. Like that's like I'm giving you that crown. You know what I'm saying? Like I feel very comfortable, throwing that out there in the ether. So, thank you once again for joining us. And really coming on and making sure that the Wizards fans are as knowledgeable as they can be about things that are going on with our favorite basketball team.
Yeah, man, for sure, man. It's I know it's not a lot of wins right now, but just stay patient, y'all.
hey, look, if we're going by the win metric, then this had to be one of the best Wizards week for the entire season.
Oh, yeah. They basically... They matched their whole win total for the year in a week.
hey, 1-1, like that's look, it literally cannot get any better.
Right.
So. Yeah, exactly. We are trying to practice patience. I don't know if everyone saw that John Wall actually had an interview just yesterday with For the Win. He preached the same thing, patience for Wizards fans. But let's try to shift our focus to today's show because, well, as Troy said, the team went 1-1 over the past few days. So we'll have to recap those games. They had a not so ideal fourth quarter performance against Cleveland. That was a 126-130 loss on Friday. And then they followed it up with a 108-89 win against Indiana on Sunday. So we'll be talking about those two games. We also have some quotes directly from Will Dawkins, who's on the Junkies. So we'll be talking about that as a little bit of an injury report of sorts. And then from there, we'll be discussing a little bit of a trade rumor that is also rumbling around this team. This is not the one that we discussed last week with Domantas Sabonis. This is a player that's actually stationed in the Eastern Conference and a few years younger. So we'll be talking about that and what it could also mean. And as I mentioned last week, we have our mailbag. So we will be getting to some of your questions on this week's episode. We'll be going question by question, and we'll have a few for all of our hosts to get through. And from there, we'll have this week's scouting report and then another edition of Where They've Been. But as I said, we're trying to focus on the most recent slate of games to lead off the show. Troy, let's focus first on the loss against Cleveland. What did you see in this loss?
Yeah, well, when it comes to Wizards games for the season, I think that the loss to Cleveland was probably like the ideal outcome for the Wizards. They played a competitive game against the Eastern Conference contending team. They really dominated the game for 46 minutes of the game, and then they lost in the last 2 minutes. And so, as we've been talking about on this show for the entirety of the season, the fact that the Wizards owe that top 8 protected pick to the New York Knicks really does affect everything that they do for the entirety of the season. And so, right now they actually have the second worst record in the NBA, but there's only a few games between them and who has the team that has the 5th worst record. So they actually do need to lose a lot of games, like in order to ensure that they keep that pick. And so that game against the Cavs was perfect for me because they came out there. We saw development and growth from the young players. Bub Carrington is on a little bit of a hot streak. Will Riley and Jamir Watkins are 2 rookies who are really trying to cement themselves in the playing rotation. And they got the loss in the standings that helps them for the tank. So that, to me, that was like the ideal outcome. We had growth and development. Brian Keefe actually looked pretty competent as the coach. The young players are actually getting minutes and playing and getting better. and they lost. So like that to me is a chef's kiss.
Well, I mean, it should quickly be noted they actually have the fewest amount of wins in the NBA right now currently. They are actually bottom in the league standings, but as you said, they had an excellent first half there. It was something that I think everyone was kind of excited for, to see them playing so well against a team, admittedly, in Cleveland that's kind of struggling as of late, but is still a team that views itself as a contender. So, Domo, what were you seeing the Wizards run successfully in that first half?
Yeah, I mean, it was the return of the real Bub Carrington, man. Like, it's been a long time coming this year. It's been a struggle for him. I think we finally got to kind of see him more in his scoring element, where it was less him playing, more trying to facilitate and more him just being aggressive, getting to his comfort spots, pull-ups, middies, and shooting the three ball, because he's a good shooter. And he was just getting to that, just playing comfortable. So I think that, and then CJ kind of getting hot, kind of carried them that first half, but the second half was kind of like big bro going on the paint on little bro. It's kind of like, all right, that was cute. Now we're gonna play some real basketball, and I'm gonna put you on this block, and it's game over. You can't do nothing about it. So, but it was a good effort. I think it was the perfect game for what this season is.
Now, Isaac, you hear Domo bringing up that second half and how the game really did change, and it felt a lot more physically dominant from Cleveland. What were you seeing in the second half that you think Washington still has to strive to improve on to prevent similar situations like that from happening again?
Don't let go of the gas pedal. When you're that on the brink of closing out a win, keep going. Do not let up at any aspect of whether defensively or offensively, and just stay focused. It's something that I've noticed just with this team, just trying to, hey, that last step, that last gear of trying to just get through that fourth quarter or get through that last bit of that third quarter is like, hey, it's all right. We're getting close. Just get over that last hump. So offensively and defensively, what I saw is just like they're still kind of like being like losing just a tad bit of focus on a possession, which starts the domino effect of, hey, they don't close out the game.
All right. Now, they were able to close it out successfully against Indiana, though, which was great for the fans, I imagine, to see. Yeah. Now, Troy, what did you see in the game against the Pacers?
Well, we got to start with the defense. The Wizards held the Indiana Pacers to a season low for the Wizards, 89 points. I think that was their first time holding an opponent below 100 points since last season. So, to me, I think that, it's not coincidental that, Coach Keefe has inserted a guy like Jamir Watkins into the rotation, and that he's a guy who I believe, now, remember last week when we were talking about how Jamir Watkins was inserted into the starting lineup, and how the only reason that I could see why Keefe did that is because Bilal Coulibaly is their defensive stopper, and so they wanted to replace him with a defensive stopper. And so looking back on it now, that decision is making a lot more sense when you really think about it from an analyst standpoint. And so, I really believe that the Wizards are trying to find an identity with just playing a certain type of basketball, and which is why you have guys like Jamir Watkins and Will Riley who are earning more minutes and playing time, while a guy like Cam Whitmore is, kind of in the doghouse in the team's rotation, because he doesn't do those things that they do, which is move off of the basketball and, play competent off-ball team defense. So, I was just very impressed with how the Wizards kind of banded together to really put forth their best defensive effort, I would say, for the calendar year of 2025.
Yeah, I think to circle back to your point, this Pacers game was great if you are in the camp for Will Riley, Jamir Watkins, and Justin Champagnie, because they were all over the place in the fourth quarter, and it was great to see that they were getting that extra bit of minutes there. Damo, was there any player that stood out to you in particular in this game against the Pacers?
Yeah, it was two players, Marvin Bagley and Justin Champagnie. Like, both of them double-doubles, 14-plus rebounds for both, I believe. Like, those guys crashed the glass. It was almost like a 90s basketball game, like kind of low scoring, some missed shots, a lot of rebounds, and it was just basically who wanted it more. And I think, too, like, the Pacers didn't have Donovan Mitchell. So You didn't have a guy going for 48 on you that you had the game plan for in that last 5 minutes. So you was able to close that one out, just playing good team basketball, rebounding, finding a body and boxing out. And those guys, man, like Champagnie and Bagley, man, a former number 2 pick, you can learn from them dudes, man. Like, they hungry. Like, they chase rebounds like, that's a highlight for them. Like, that's a step back or a dunk. So you need those guys if you're trying to build an identity on a young team that's defense first, that grit and grind basketball, man, so that when you do finally get that number 1 option on this team, you got a nucleus of guys that can support that player. So
yeah, I mean, shout out to Marvin Bagley III as well.
Shout out to Marvin Bagley.
Look, he's averaging 14 points a game so far for the current month of December. Now, we're only at the midway point, obviously, but that would be the most points per game he's averaged in any single month since April of the 2022-23 season. Ooh. So been a while since he's had this kind of a scoring uptick, and he's had pretty solid performances back to back. But let's stop talking about the team that's currently constructed and focus on what the team could look like in the coming weeks. Because Will Dawkins was actually on the Junkies of 106.7 The Fan just yesterday, and he actually noted that the Wizards are hoping to get Bilal Coulibaly, Alex Starr, and Chris Middleton back within the next week to 10 days. And the additional hope is to have Corey Kispert return shortly thereafter. Now, that's a lot of minutes that have to be reallocated amongst this rotation. Troy, how do you think this is going to shake out for the current team?
Well, I think that the way that it's going to shake out is that, it's really going to thin out a lot of those rookie minutes, the Jamir Watkins and Will Riley minutes. I honestly do believe, though, that, I think that with the December 15th, this is an important day for the NBA and overall, is because now that, a lot of the players who signed deals in the summertime are now eligible to be traded. And so for me, I think that one of the priorities for the Wizards front office, and they're probably going down to the coaching staff, is that over this next month that we have to be showcasing some of these players if we want to, get their trade value up. And so, while I do understand the importance of getting guys like Will Riley and Jamir Watkins quality minutes throughout the season, I think that there will be ample opportunities for them after the trade deadline. And that in the best interest of the team for the next month or two until February trade deadline is to, try to get this trade value up for a guy like CJ McCollum or Chris Middleton or Corey Kispert when he comes back. Like, we got to showcase these guys to the rest of the league to show that, number one, that these guys are healthy, and number two, that, that they still have basketball left in them. And so, it's definitely going to be a struggle for Coach Keefe to try to balance how he allocates these minutes. But like I said, the priority right now over the next month definitely should be trying to showcase some of these veterans so that they can turn these distressed assets into actual assets.
And Domo, do you agree with Troy's contention that should be the intended goal of the team right now?
Yeah, for sure. And I know a lot of fans are going to hate this because some of these lineup decisions are going to look a little funky. And you're going to be wondering why this vet got this many minutes or got this many shots. But we got about a 2-month showcase run here. So we gotta put our best outfit on for the runway. We gotta put the best fit on because look, we try to have it sale, man. Like everything must go. So it's gonna be a couple of guys, it's gonna be a couple of young guys that you're gonna be like, man, they just played 25, 30 minutes, they just had a good game, and then they get a DNP. Or they get 5 minutes because we got to show this vet off. And it is what it is. Like, we're trying to extract value and get the most out of these expiring deals that are sitting on this roster. Because you got $72 million that's about to expire this summer. And you got to find a way to hit that salary floor next year. So it's some ways they got to do it. They got to get creative. And it is what it is.
Now, Isaac, you hear the points that they're making here. If you are a coach, you're someone who's played in the past, how, as a coach, would you try to balance the development of the young players who are going to be losing these minutes?
First and foremost, if I'm Coach Keys, I'm having a separate conversation with the young guys and letting them know, like, hey, like, this is what the business is. Like, just try to keep it out in the open because we're not trying to play for a championship at the moment. So one, that transparency and just letting them know, like, hey, this is what it's going to be, and just stay ready when the opportunity comes back up. I'm going to make these personnel decisions and I'm just going to roll with it. That's the big thing. And then if I'm trying to bounce a young guy, hey, if like Chris Middleton or any of those older vets get into like a little bit of foul trouble or they look like they're missing a little bit of step, you're going to be plug and play almost like a platoon system. Just like get them in there for a little bit to try to keep the pace going, and then you're going to pull them right out. That's what I'm envisioning. But like I said, I can't speak for Coach Keefe. So that's what I'm thinking. That's what's about to happen.
Isaac, I think you brought up a great point, and like the key to creating healthy culture within a team sport organization is that type of transparency. And so, that a lot of these young guys, you're a young kid. You grew up the best player since you were 12 years old. You've always been given everything, everybody patting you on the back, telling you how great you are. But how many people are really sitting down and having those tough conversations with you and letting you know about the realities of the business of sports? And so, I think that this is very important for, like I said, for the healthiness of the team culture that they're trying to build. Like it would definitely behoove the Wizards coaching staff and front office, to be as transparent as possible with these young guys so that they know that, this isn't personal, that this isn't, there's not always going to be like this. But for right now, it is what it is.
And I think that part of that transparency also has to be honest and say that these trades may not even happen, right? This is under the presumption that minutes may be freed up after the trade deadline, but that also may not be the case because we don't really know what everyone's trade value is currently. And so
whether some of these players get traded or not, those minutes are going to be freed up after the deadline. Let's not get that confused.
But let's now move on to some possible rumors surrounding the Wizards, because Jake Weinbach has reported that should the Cavaliers begin engaging in trade discussions around Darius Garland, then the Timberwolves, Magic, and Wizards would be the frontrunners as considered to be potential trade candidates for him. Troy, is there any reason to believe this right now?
I would say this is probably less credible than the last rumor that we talked about. Number one, I think that when you look at the Wizards and Darius Garland, when you look at the Cleveland Cavaliers first and Darius Garland, is that the Cavs came into this year with expectations of trying to compete for a championship. And right now, they're looking like a play-in type team. And so, they're not going to be just trading Darius Garland for anything. They're going to be looking for assets and things and immediate return to help them turn their season around. And I don't think that the Wizards are just in that position to give them what they're looking for. So, I honestly, and then bringing in the fact of Darius Garland's injury history, the fact that we just saw him play Friday night in Washington, D.C., mind you that he went 0 for 11 from 3 in that game, did not hit one three-pointer. Like, he has a turf toe injury, and that injury is so tricky where there is a possibility that toe is never right ever again. And so, to me, I think that for what the Cleveland Cavaliers will probably be looking for and asking for as a team who's trying to compete for a championship, I personally just don't see the Wizards really having the treasure trove of assets that would be enough to entice a deal for Darius Garland. And even if they did, I don't know if it's worth it for a guy who has this lingering toe problem and has not looked right in a calendar year.
Right, and I think also we need to consider the other teams that are mentioned here, that being Orlando and Minnesota. They're also teams that are looking to contend right now, right? And so you have a team that themselves is trying to potentially explore trading away a player to improve their team. You have two other teams that are trying to also drive up the price against each other because they're trying to contend. They need this piece now. It doesn't really make a lot of sense for the Wizards because the bidding is going to go up. It's going to climb in such a way that doesn't actually fit the timeline of this franchise. Right, we were talking last week about Sabonis. There's a chance that Sabonis may need to be offshed because a salary dump scenario, right? That probably won't be as likely here for Garland. And as you mentioned, on top of his injury history, he's only, a year younger than Marvin Bagley III? So he doesn't exactly fit the timeline of the youth movement. he's not so much older than so much of the core roster, but that it just doesn't really match here. And I don't really think there's a lot of credence to think that Washington would actually go forward with this. I think it's a classic case of someone is naming a team in these reports to help drive up the price that is going to go to a Minnesota or to an Orlando, because they know that Washington has flatly a ton of assets, so they could afford the player like this in a trade. It just doesn't really logically make a lot of sense. But we're not really going to cover this all too much because we have a mailbag to get to. As I mentioned last week's show, we had actually reopened the mailbag for you all to submit us your questions. So we're going to go through them right now. And the same time as the last time we opened up the mailbag, every single person who has their question responded to in today's show, we will be following up with you, and we will be sending you a Capital Hoop Caucus pin. So you will actually have a little bit of memorabilia for being a part of this week's show. You guys ready to open up the mailbag?
Oh, yeah.
Born ready.
Perfect. Let's get to question 1. This one is from Dre. How are we meant to gauge the development of this team if we're not winning games? What are we supposed to be looking for? Troy?
Well, the thing that we have to look for is individual growth and development from these young players. We want to see them having a better overall feel for the game of basketball. Things like I want to see are the players maturing physically. I want to see a guy like Will Riley. I know that I talked to a scout in the NBA, and he said he watched him play a game against the College Park Skyhawks, and he said, "Man, Will Riley looked really good, but he's so skinny." And it's like, so for a guy like that, I want to see, are they putting them on a diet plan and making sure that these guys are being able to be the best versions of themselves physically. And then also, like I said, just seeing the growth and development on the court. We want to see shot selection get better. So, for a guy like Alex Sarr, who last year was taking a lot of outside jumpers and three-point shots, his shot selection this year is much more digestible. When you talk about a guy who's getting shots around the rim. Bub Carrington taking more three-pointers, shooting a higher percentage from three. I think those are things and metrics that you could look at that don't have to do with the win or loss column that can be good indicators of whether the young guys are actually getting better.
All right, now let's move on to question 2. This one is courtesy of Zave. Isaac, I'll ask you. Trey Johnson, he has been putting up nearly the same numbers as Ace Bailey this season. Should we view that as a positive or a negative?
I would personally say that it's neither positive or negative. They're rookies, in my opinion. But to answer the complete question, I want to say it's a positive. Because, Trey hasn't been playing a lot. He's been injured for a little bit, given that he's been dealing with a lingering injury and still putting up a decent number as much as Ace Bailey, because I know the casual consensus of most Wizards fans, they wanted Ace Bailey because he's this generational talent. Trey's averaging 11.2, Ace Bailey's averaging 11.5. 11.5 is because, Ace has been a little more healthier than Trey. So I look at it as they're both rookies. It's a positive for the most part, but we have to really see after the All-Star break and see all right, who's playing longer and who's been more available. Then we get to figure out if it's truly there's a major difference.
Right now, and shout out to Zave. I actually think that this person asked us a question the last time, so I guess this person's going to get 2 pins for it last time. But let's move on to question 3. Domo, this question is, we started the season 3-20 again. At what point do we stop calling this tank ethical?
I feel like that came straight from Andrew Sharp.
It's tough because there's an added context to this tank, because again we owe our pick to another team, so we can't afford to be too ethical, because then it's GM malpractice. The worst possible thing that could happen is, instead of winning 16 games, we win 20 games, and say we drop from 6 odds to the 9th odds, and then our pick goes to the New York Knicks in one of the best drafts since LeBron entered the league. that would be a disaster. That would be a fireable offense. And we can't have that. So I'll take all of the allegations of unethical to keep that daggone pick.
Hey, all I can say to that is that part.
Listen, I don't want Will Dawkins to get fired either. I kind of like him, so I'd like his regime to stick around. But this last question here, I'll ask for the entire group, and then we've got one special question at the end. But I'll first ask Troy this: have any of the vets managed to increase their trade value this year? This question courtesy of Damon.
CJ McCollum. Look, I gotta give CJ McCollum credit. And so when you talk about today's NBA, about how important it is to have guard play of guys who can beat their man off the dribble and create shots for themselves, CJ McCollum struggled early on in the season, but there is no question that when you watch him play over these last 2-3 weeks, that he still can create his own shot. His jumper is still wet, and I think that that they're literally when you're talking about the trade market, all it takes is one. All it takes is one team. And so I think that CJ McCollum has put himself in a position where there might be one team out there that's like, they look ahead, they see that expiring money. They might say, oh, we can get his bird rights, sign him back for $15 million. Like, I think that there might be one team who may be willing to come up off something for a CJ McCollum. So I think the way he has played, like I said, it's like the Undertaker meme. He literally rose from the dead.
And Domo, same question. Have any of the vets in your eyes managed to increase their trade value this year?
Yeah, I'll pivot a little bit from CJ. I would say Marvin Bagley. Like, I mean, to your point earlier about his numbers this month, man. Like, yeah, he's rebounding the ball well. He's playing solid defense. He's been a force in the paint. I think he's kind of solidified himself around the league as a legitimate backup five.
Yeah, shout out to Marvin Bagley, who the Wizards got a first-round pick for by trading him last year, then re-sign him. If they could get a first-round pick again for him, like, yo, that would be a masterclass.
Yeah. You got to at least put his name somewhere in the acknowledgments. Not in the rafters, but some sort of acknowledgement.
For real. Like, you got to put him on a gravel stone outside the arena. It just says Marvin Bagley traded for multiple first-round picks. Like,
give him a play.
And Isaac, do you think that any of the vets have increased their trade value?
Corey Kispert, prior to getting hurt, I think he increases value. And I think, given on the position on his role with the Wizards, I want to hope a playoff contending team trades for him, so we get another some more draft capital back. I don't know how much, but I think there's some value there with him, and he's increased it to where, like, hey, let's get one of these contenders that are desperate for a shooter per se, and grab one of their draft picks.
All right. Well, let's get into the final question of the mailbag. I think this one is probably more directed toward our very own Troy. Here is the full question. Hey guys, love the show. My name is Zach. I'm a student, and I'm not going to say the high school he goes to because no. And I want to become a reporter. Do you have any advice on how I should best approach building connections with potential sources?
Yeah, that's really easy. The best advice I could give you is to go to sporting events and introduce yourself to people and build genuine relationships with people. So that means going to a basketball game, let's say whatever your high school is, go to your high school basketball game and start to meet people, start to talk to the reporters that are there, start to talk to the coaches, start building genuine relationships with people. And that means, when I say genuine, that means you introduce yourself to somebody. You might exchange information with them. You don't turn around and ask them for something. You build a relationship with them so that you can actually get to know them. And then so over the course of getting to know them, like then you'll have authentic relationships, and then information will just begin to being shared amongst people who are friends. And so I think that the biggest mistake where I see a lot of young people who are trying to get into the industry, they always want to come and they start asking for stuff immediately. And it's like, yo, I like, you don't know these people, so Like, and people have like their own lives and their own jobs and their own things going on. It's like you have to build a relationship with somebody before you start coming in and asking them for information. So I think that the best way is to go to as many sporting events as possible, introduce yourself to as many people as possible, and build genuine relationships with them so that you can now grow. Yeah, you all grow together. Because, I've been doing this for a little over a decade now, and there are people who, I met 10 years ago who were scouts or trainers and ball boys. Now they're assistant GMs. And so as you elevate, these other people will elevate as well. And so now because you have a genuine relationship with them, it's not like, oh, I'm coming and asking somebody for something. I'm just talking to a friend. And so, I think that that's the best possible way, the best advice that I could give to people who want to break through in this industry.
And on that note, we will take our first break, and then on the other side, we'll have this week's scouting report. Welcome back into the Capitol Hoop Caucus. I am Wardell McCabe, and I am joined right now by Isaac Harris and Troy Halliburton. And we're still joined by Domo, our very special guest this week, who will be helping us go through this week's scouting report. For those who do not know what that is, it's when we will ask each of our hosts to provide their thoughts on whether a player's stock has risen, fallen, or remained the same since the last time we checked in with them, when we will be awarding points along the way for the host who makes the most poignant points. Here at the Capitol Hoop Caucus, we believe that good points deserve good points. You guys ready to start this week's scouting report?
Let's get it.
Absolutely.
Yes,
All right, we'll start first with Troy. Is the stock up or down for Bub Carrington?
Stock's got to be up. When the stock was on the floor to begin the first 20 games of the season, the way that he's played over the last 3 games. Shout out since they inserted him back into the starting lineup, and I had that tweet that said, "I feel a big Bub game coming on." Like, he's had his 3 best games of the season since that tweet. So yes, I think that Bub stock has to be up, and I know we're going to plan to talk about more of this on Friday, but it's starting to look like that 20-game stretch that he played terrible, that may be the aberration in his career. And so I would urge Wizards fans to not give up on Bub Carrington just yet.
And Isaac?
Stock is up. I said last week that I hopefully that he had a good game. Since he had a good game against Atlanta, it boosted up his confidence, and it looked like it did. I mean, having 27 points and then 11 rebounds and finding your spots in each of those games and then showing up a little bit defensively, his confidence is coming, and I hope it just continues.
And Domo?
Yeah, for sure. Stock definitely up. I mean, the guy lost his starting job for poor play, and he's been back in the starting lineup these last 3 games, and he's performed well. I mean, he shot the ball well all year. I think now he's shooting it with a little bit more volume and more confidence, in addition to, his mid-range pull-up game. So, yeah, I would say stock up for sure.
Strong first round from all, but only one of you illustrated the arc of redemption. And for that reason, Troy gets the first point of this week's game. Let's move on to round 2. Domo, has the stock risen or fallen for Justin Champagnie?
Definitely risen for sure. Showing his hustle and his ability to play the glass. I mean, a double-double effort recently against the Cavs, 14 rebounds for a guy that's only 6'5". I mean, you can't say nothing but stock up for that guy. I mean, he has real value as a rotational player, I think, around the league on a very good contract.
And Isaac?
Stock is up. I'm always been a fan of Justin Champagnie. I mean, he played incredible against Indiana and showed his defensive chops. And the last couple games that he has played, he's shown that he can be a rotational player, and so much for that other teams are taking notice. Then fans are saying, we need to trade this guy. I've seen it on the Twitter threads. So because of that, his stock is all the way up with me, that when other people are noticing, yeah, he's been definitely up there.
And Troy?
Stock definitely has to be up, and I agree with Domo with what he said about Justin Champagnie's trade value and his value as an asset around the league. It is definitely, I feel like, growing, and he may be the sneaky wizard that has a lot of trade value on the team that we didn't really get a chance to talk about. But The way that he's playing, hustling, like he's just so active on the court. Every time he gets on the court, he just does things. And so, his stock has to be up.
All right. Well, this round, the point goes to the person who got another host to directly agree to his initial point. That means Domo gets a point for round 2. Let's move on to round 3. Troy, what's the stock at right now for Jamir Watkins?
Stock has to be up. He went from a guy who was not really playing in the rotation to a guy who, he got some spot starts while Bilal Coulibaly has been out. And really, he's kind of supplanted Cam Whitmore in the rotation. And honestly, with the way that he's played, I don't think that has been a wrong decision. He's been a defensive stopper. I was really impressed with what he was able to do to like Darius Garland the other night. There's a reason why he shot 0 for 11, because Jamir Watkins was all up in his grill for the entirety of that game. And so, I think that when you look at what the Wizards saw when they drafted Jamir Watkins, I think some of those things are already coming to fruition.
Isaac?
Stock is all the way up for me with Jamir Watkins. And this is just going back to something that when I went to a go-go game, head coach Cody Topper mentioned. He mentioned that Jamir is trying to play a role similar to Justin Champagnie, play that 3-and-D role and be defensive. And so far, he has shown that in every spot, whether it's with the go-go or whether it's with the Wizards. He's shown that he's trying to learn and pick up those pieces and be that Justin Champagnie role and hopefully get even more experience as that. So stock is all the way up.
Dama?
Yeah, definitely another stock up. I feel like he's kind of, in the absence of Bilal, who's been that point of attack defender all year, I think Jamir coming in and playing that role and just guarding guys 94 feet, just being a pest, man. Almost kind of like a Patrick Beverly type. Just get up under you and just make it difficult for you all night. Whether you make or miss shots, like it's going to be difficult for you. It's going to be a long night. You're going to have to beat him off the dribble. So, definitely stock up. And again, as a second round pick, he's kind of solidifying himself as a guy that you just might have to keep in the rotation.
Well, for making a quote directly from a head coach of the G League, if that's not a basketball sicko, I do not know what is. Isaac gets the point for this round. Let's move on. The 4th round. Damo, what's the stock out right now for Marvin Bagley?
Yeah, again, so stock up. Again, a double-double effort. This month he's been, I believe, averaging a double-double, scoring and rebounding the ball, playing solid help defense. I think his stock is up, and, he's solidified himself as a backup big in this league, as a guy, as a former number 2 overall pick, man. That's kind of bounced around a lot. I won't go as far to say this might be a home for him, but I feel like he's got some real value, so that if this isn't where he stays, I feel like maybe the next stop he's at is going to be a home for him, where he can buy a house or something and settle down a little bit.
And Isaac?
Oh, no, stock's all the way up. He's been playing with the double-double. I mean, he's had a double-double these last 2 games. And I guess I'm going to be honest, this isn't his home. He's going to get us another first-round pick or another draft or a couple other picks. Let's just be honest. He's been playing. We're playing him to get him other stuff, so we're to get more players. So, no, he's been showing that he's a trade asset, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's the first guy off the board, so stock's up.
All right, and Troy?
Yeah, stock has to be up for Marvin Bagley. I love the fact that, in today's NBA, that people are really trying to kind of drive out the center position. And so or really trying to make the center position a specialist position. So you either have guys who are great rim protectors and they can't really do much on the offensive end, or you have guys who stretch the floor and don't really do a lot on the defensive end. Whereas Marvin Bagley is kind of that rare combination of a center who can still do he's almost proficient at everything that the center position entails. And so, I think that just his level of consistency that he's shown with the Wizards, it just adds an intrinsic value to this team. And I think that, we're going to end up seeing that value, that his play has value across the league.
I want to award a point that round for the person who was most bold in claiming that a first round pick would absolutely be garnered. But look, Troy just came in with the absolute heater of a fastball there. So Troy has to get the point that round. Let's close it out now. Troy, what's the stock at right now for Trey Johnson?
Well, it's unfortunate that we can't have it for a team with the record of the Wizards. Everybody's stock can't be up. So I'm going to say that Trey Johnson's stock is down just because of the fact that, he is coming off of injury. And, I am very happy that he's back out there on the court. But we have seen a little bit of rust from his game over his return to the court. I think that part of it is him and, just his overall lack of physicality and strength as a young player right now. But also a part of it is from head coach Brian Keefe really not putting him in the position to go out there and do what he does best. And so I like when Corey Kisper's out, Trey Johnson they need to be running Corey Kisper sets for Trey Johnson. And I just haven't seen that happening. And so I think just off the fact that he started out so hot as a rookie, and then he got hurt, and then he's come back and he struggled a little bit, I'd say that his stock has to be down. But that doesn't mean that I don't like him as a player. Just for the purpose of this game, this exercise, his stock is down.
And Isaac?
I'm going to have to disagree with Troy. I have to give stock up. Why not? Everybody gets stock up. It's tis the season. And the only reason why is because yeah, right. The only reason why is because if you look at his points, so that when he came back on this past Friday against Cleveland, he had 3 points. Definitely looked rusty. Field goal percentage was 16.7%. Indiana in that win, 57.1% from the field goal range and 75% from three and 14 points. He looked pretty similar to when we last saw him play. So yes, he has a little bit of rust, but obviously he only needed one game to get back and 1 day of film. 1 day of film. So I'm going to give him stock up that, hey, for a rookie to bounce back a little bit after being out for some time, not bad.
And Domo?
Yeah, man, I'm going to go with Isaac on this, man. I'm going to go stock up, man. I feel like Trey, outside of the injuries, that if you find that he's been dealing with this injury pretty much all year, and he's still shooting 39% from three on pretty good volume as a 19-year-old. That to me, it just tracks well where his development is going to go, because if this is the worst we're going to see him shoot the ball, and he's shooting 39% as a rookie, and he's doing it on multiple platforms, off the catch, off the bounce, pin downs, however you want it, he could shoot that ball. And with the type of injury he got, man, with his abdomen, that's impressive to me. So he just needs to stay healthy. So I'm gonna say stock up. That boy had 14 points in 16 minutes, almost a point per minute. That's stock up for me.
All right. Well, to quote Isaac, 'tis in fact the season. Points all around for that round. Why not? But that actually still means that the winner this week is Troy. So if you agree or disagree with the results of this week's scouting report, or if you just disagreed with anyone's takes, then please let us know by commenting in the comment section of this video or by texting us at 833-377-6630, or you can even click message the show in the episode description of this very podcast, or even messaging us directly on social media. Where, Isaac?
At Cap Hoop Caucus on X and Capita Hoop Caucus on Instagram and TikTok.
Wonderful. Now, before we go anywhere else, we've got a quick game for our hosts, because it's time for Where They've Been, the only game where our hosts have to guess a player's identity based upon where they have played. We'll have 3 rounds of mystery players, and our hosts will each take turns trying to guess who the mystery player is. When it's each host's turn, they can either ask me a question to try to better narrow down the player's identity, or they can actually guess the player's identity if they feel confident enough in who they know it is. A quick note, though, is that all of these players are actively on teams that the Washington Wizards have recently played against. So are you all ready to play Where They've Been?
Let's get it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this first player from west to east has played for the Chicago Bulls, Cleveland Cavaliers, and Miami Heat. Troy, we'll start with you. Do you want to ask a question, or do you think you know who it is?
Chicago Bulls, Miami Heat. Is that Max Strus?
It is Max Strus on the very first guess. Very nice. Getting the first point there. Let's move on to the next player now, because this player from west to east has played for the Portland Trailblazers, LA Lakers, New Orleans Pelicans, Atlanta Hawks, and Cleveland Cavaliers. Domo, we'll start first with you now. Do you want to ask a question to narrow this player down, or do you think you know who it is?
Which one of those was the first team?
That is an excellent question. The very first team that he played for was the LA Lakers. Now, Isaac, do you want to ask a question, or do you think you know who this is?
I'm going to ask a question. I guess, is he currently on the Blazers?
No, he is currently on the Cleveland Cavaliers. Troy, you want to ask a question, or do you think you know who this is?
That's Larry Nance.
It is Larry Nance Jr. All right. Now let's move on to the final player who from west to east has played for the LA Lakers, Denver Nuggets, Memphis Grizzlies, Indiana Pacers, and Washington Wizards. Isaac, we'll start first with you. Do you want to ask a question there and narrow it down, or do you think you know who this is?
I'm going to be bold here. Is it Jay Huff?
Ah, you got it. It is Jay Huff. Look. Hey, good job, Isaac. Don't be look. Yeah.
Very nice. You still were able to get a point there, but Troy does actually win where they've been again this week. So, Troy, for our listeners at home, where can they get more of your work?
They can always find me on the platform formerly known as Twitter, but now X at Troy Halliburton, and all of my writings and musings on my Substack, Capital Hoop Caucus.
And Isaac?
You can always find me on X at Ike Ireites, and then on Instagram is Isaac_Ajikum Harris 224. And then you can always find me just doing whatever on A10 Talk or even with our own college stuff.
Right. And just again, for the audience, where can they follow the show?
You can always follow the show at Cap Hoop Caucus on X, and then Capital Hoop Caucus on Instagram and TikTok.
And Domo, finally, last and certainly not least, where can our audience get more of your work?
Yeah, man. As far as the pod, Wizards Gallery Place, man, and then on X, Domo8186, man. I'm always tweeting something, so yeah, I'll let your boy.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us on today's show. Thank you all at home for listening to this week's show as well. Signing off for Isaac Harris, Troy Halliburton, myself, Wardell McCabe, and our very special guest, Domo. This has been another edition of the Capital Hoop Caucus. We'll talk to you all again on Saturday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern on ESPN 630 and the ESPN 630 app.